The X Zone Radio Show with Rob McConnell is largely an opinion talk show. All opinions, comments, or statements of fact expressed by Rob McConnell's guests are strictly their own and are not to be construed as those of the X Zone Radio Show or endorsed in any manner by Rob McConnell, Relmar McConnell Media Company, the X Zone Broadcast Network, its affiliated networks, stations, employees, or advertisers.
All Hit Radio.
Welcome to the X Zone, a place where fact is fiction and fiction is reality. Now, here's your host, Rob McConnell.
And welcome back, everyone. This is the X Zone. I am Rob McConnell, and we're coming to you from our broadcast center and studios in Niagara, Ontario, Canada. If you'd like to send me an email, xzone@xzoneradiotv.com, on all social media sites, X Zone Radio TV. To find out about the X Zone Radio TV show on the X Zone Broadcast Network and the other fine broadcast shows that we have available for you 24/7, 365, visit www.xzbn.net. And for the X Zone TV channel, visit www.simultv.com, and in the search engine on the top of the page, type in X Zone. My guest this hour is Wayne Perry, and Wayne is an internationally recognized as a leading authority on sound therapy, and he is in much demand as a seminar presenter. He's also the published author, I should say, of Sound Medicine. This popular informative book has been distributed worldwide through New Page Books, rated mostly 5 stars on Amazon. Now, Wayne has been applying the diagnostic and therapeutic principles of sound healing and subtle energy to his practice as founder and director of the Sound Therapy Center of Los Angeles, which he established in 1992. This was the first sound healing facility of its kind in Southern California to offer private services, workshops, toning groups, and sound therapy products. At STCLA, Wayne has a private practice as a sound therapist and vibrational healer, where his specialty is using diagnostic voice analysis and the profound therapeutic capabilities of the human voice toward optimal health and wellness. Joining me now from Los Angeles, California, is Wayne Perry. And Wayne, welcome to the X Zone.
Thank you, Rob. Good to be here.
Great having you with us, Wayne. Tell us a little bit about your history and background experience and how you actually got into sound therapy, sound medicine. It's a fascinating topic.
Yeah, it was kind of through the back door. I was actually doing what you're doing. I was hosting a radio show in Los Angeles on KCLA, and I was started as just an announcer at midnight on the weekends, and then I developed my own show on Friday night, and had a few different shows I was hosting and producing. I was the music and film critic. I had an interview show. I was doing a music show, and and the show that I kind of was my favorite was the interview show, because I've always been into personal growth and metaphysics and cutting edge stuff, on the leading edge of personal growth and advancement. And so with that show, I was pre-interviewing people in my living room, channelers, psychics, healers, and to separate the wheat from the chaff, and the people that really were worthwhile and interesting and had something valid to share and say, I would have on my show. And I was like a kid in a candy store. It was kind of my favorite show. And then after 2 years of doing that show, I had the founder of bioacoustics. Bioacoustics, by the way, is the study of the frequencies that emanate from living organisms. And she was the founder from Ohio, and had her on the show actually twice, and we kind of became friends. And then when I took my show to television, I had her as a guest on my TV show as well, and she invited me to participate in her first training in California. I was, a little hesitant at first, but it was so fascinating, the sound therapy. I was kind of actually skeptical at first until I watched these videos of people being healed from severe illnesses, cancer and severe environmental allergies and terminal illnesses. And it kind of really sort of blew my mind. I wanted to know more about it. And through having her on the show and becoming friends, I got insights into it. And then I wound up being one of the 17 participants in her training in California in Culver City. And it was so mind-blowing and eye-opening that I went to Phoenix 2 months later and did the training again, because there was so much to wrap my mind around, like the frequencies of the periodic table, for instance, and a lot of stuff like that. It was just a lot to retain. But after the second time, I knew this was too profound to pass up, because when I was in college in Chicago, I remember reading a number of Edgar Cayce's books, and one of the things he said around 1952 is sound will be the medicine of the future. And I was thinking to myself, the future is now. I really see this as the medicine of the future. And I wound up subsequently canceling all the radio shows I was involved with. I just stuck with Heart Touch. It was Heart Touch with Wayne Perry was the interview show. I just kept that show and did my sound work for free for people initially. I just printed up some brochures and business cards, and I would do friends and family, anybody that was willing to be a guinea pig. And in a matter of no time, I started seeing the results people were getting, and I started working on recording my first CD on sound healing, and it was a real uphill climb. Even with the CD out, people would laugh and say, "Oh yeah, your sound and your voice and your music is going to heal my tumor or my arthritis," and nobody really took it seriously. And most people just kind of laughed about it, and it was quite a struggle initially the first couple of years until I had one of the first great testimonials I had from my first recording, the Cosmic Choir, was a lady, a professor at a university who was scheduled to have her leg amputated at the knee and had gangrene. And I get a letter from her saying that she listened over and over again to the Cosmic Choir, and it seemed to stop the growth of the gangrene, and she didn't have to have her leg amputated. And she wrote me this long, loving, ecstatic letter, and it kind of blew my mind. That was the first really strong testimonial I got. I mean, other than local personal people I was working with. And that sort of was the beginning of the journey. I subsequently left the radio show. I kept the TV show going for 13 years because when I started traveling, I could do the TV show. I could record them in advance and schedule them for air. But the radio show was live, and I couldn't keep up with that because I was traveling all over the world within a couple of years. So that was the beginning.
How does sound therapy and sound medicine work? Like this lady who had the gangrene. How does it work? Like this is unheard of.
Well, that was kind of mind blowing for me too.
Yeah.
I mean, I can't even explain how it worked for her, other than the harmonics of regenerative sound that she experienced. Normally, what I do with most clients is a diagnostic sound analysis to determine their personal frequency. That I learned through bioacoustics, and it's really the only thing I still do from my bioacoustic training is the sound analysis. Everything else I do, I kind of developed on my own. But when I do the diagnostic sound analysis, I chart out a person's frequency pattern. I can tell in about 30 or 40 minutes where they're strong and where they're weak, physically, emotionally, vibrationally, because what's in the brain is also in your voice. Our brains are like the home office of our body. And our signature frequency, you could call it, your personal signature frequency is stored in the brain. And so if it's in your brain, it's likewise in your voice. And if it's missing or dormant in the brain, it'll also be missing or dormant in your voice. So that's the key to understanding and getting people involved in sound therapy. but it's also kind of related to the 3 R's of sound, which I could explain if you like.
I'd love to. We've got about a minute before I have to go for my first commercial break. Why don't we hold off on that until we come back? But you've done some amazing work around the world, as you were stating. You even had healing experiences for all that were in attendance at sacred sites of Avery and Stonehenge in England, and the King's Chamber and the Great Pyramid of Giza in Egypt. These must have been something to behold.
Yeah, it was exciting and very cool.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there are other places too. I mean, there's vortexes in Sedona, Arizona that I've worked with, and people have invited me to different parts of the world, and Bulgaria, Italy, and lately, the last couple of years, I've been spending a lot of time in Taiwan and Hong Kong and Shanghai. The people there are so open-minded and open-hearted. They're really beautiful people, and they're under a communist dictatorship regime where I'm sure you know the one-child rule in China is so terrible. And, interviewing these people and doing their sound analysis and helping them transform their lives, it's just exciting for me. And they're just so appreciative. They bring me gifts and they treat me like a king over there. It's just so amazing.
All right, Wayne, stand by. You and I have to take our first break. X Zone Nation, Wayne Perry is our special guest. www.wayneperry.com. This is the X Zone. I am Rob McConnell. We're coming to you from our broadcast center and studios in Niagara, Ontario, Canada. If you'd like to read the current edition of the X Chronicles newspaper, by the way, they are always with our compliments, go to www.xchroniclesnewspaper.com. We'll be back on the other side of this break. Don't go away. Welcome back, everyone. Before we get back to our guest, Wayne Perry, just a reminder that the X Zone Broadcast Network is available 7/24/365 with our compliments. And some of the shows that we have for you are Healing Within with Patty Conklin, Cal's Corner with Cal Korf, Connecting with Coincidence with Dr. Bernie Beitman, Too Good to Be True with Justina and Peter Marsh, Mission Evolution with Gwilda Wieka, let me see here, A Different Perspective with our good friend Kevin Randall, and Imagine More Success with Cindy Hendricks and Thomas Hides. That's right on the X Zone Broadcast Network's website, www.xzbn.net. Wayne Perry's our guest. We're talking about sound healing and sound medicine this hour. His website is wayneperry.com. Wayne, before we went to the commercial break, you were just going to tell us something very interesting.
Well, there's a lot of interesting things about sound therapy. We could probably talk for 3 or 4 hours and not cover everything. But let's see, the 3 hours, I
That's
think
right,
yeah. The 3 types of sound I've kind of categorized under, it's in my book, Sound Medicine, called the 3 R's, because it's an easy way to kind of categorize and remember the types of sound to help people understand a little better. The first R, or type of sound, is relaxing sound. Now, relaxing sound is not really healing sound. A lot of people think that the more beautiful and ambiently relaxing and pretty a sound is, the more healing it is, where it's not at all. In fact, it's usually not a beautiful ambient sound that's going to get rid of a tumor or some major chronic illness. The purpose of relaxing sounds are to calm and soothe the body. And if you've ever had a healing experience during relaxing sound, it would be wise to give your body the credit rather than the sound of the person creating the relaxing sound, because our body is like a self-healing mechanism if it's given a sound environment, all puns intended. So when we're in a sound environment, the body can do its job of healing all sorts of things, but it's difficult sometimes. So when the body isn't in the right environment, it starts kicking out excess frequencies. So when I do a sound analysis, I notice there's three conditions people have. They have some frequencies that are good and healthy. This is the first. The second category is frequencies that are weak and need to be supported with brainwave entrainment, which I could talk about later. It's a very important principle in healing. And then the third condition is excess frequencies, where the body's trying to correct itself and it's not able to do so, so it starts kicking out too much of the wrong frequency. And then there's a backup or blocks in the body that kind of blocks the self-healing process. So those are the three things that I look at when I do a diagnostic analysis, is look for the good, strong sounds, the weak ones, and the excess blocked ones. But anyway, getting back to the 3 R's, so the relaxing sounds calm and soothe the body, but they're not really healing. And I like to mention and digress particularly here, because I don't know how it is in Canada, but in California, the last 2 years we've been inundated with the sound bath fad. And when people that are just getting into sound healing, they say, well, let's go to a sound bath, or there's all this discussion about sound baths, and they're not healthy. I spend a lot of time on social media and doing free presentations and webinars about the dangers of sound baths, because everybody gravitates to them because they're easy. You don't have to do anything. They tell you to bring a blanket and a pillow and lay down, and they play some gongs and crystal bowls and tuning forks or whatever they're using, different sound things, and they're not really healing. They're relaxing. But the problem with it, the reason that they're dangerous, is because even though these facilitators of sound baths are well-intentioned, nice people that have good intentions, but they're not certified sound therapists like I am, and they don't realize that if you give somebody the sound that they have an excess of in their brainwave pattern, you can exacerbate any physical or emotional illness. So if sound has the power to heal, it also has the power to harm.
Yeah, I was just going to ask you that, with all the data that we're being inundated with these days. Have you noticed an increase in the type of negative feelings and illnesses that people are coming down with? And can you, as a professional sound medicine practitioner, can you diagnose that a lot of the new illnesses that are being brought to your attention are actually because of the inundation of data, sound, and other noise that are coming from the handheld units that everybody has?
Well, to some extent, yeah. I mean, it's hard at this point to know all the details, to be able to research it properly and really eke out some exact understanding of it. But, it goes way back. There's been research. I remember some years ago studying research that people that live within a 5-mile radius of an international airport have a much higher incidence of heart disease. This has been shown over and over again that and so, of course, people that work in the airports, just like in certain factories, they have earmuffs or ear devices, earmuffs, whatever you call them, to block out some of the sounds so that they're not damaged. So there's some of the obvious things like that, but there's subtler things too. There's even been some research with people living near bridges, the old, big, large cable bridges, that there's like subsonic sounds that sometimes the human ear doesn't even hear. A lot of sounds that can be damaging. We only hear from like 15 hertz or cycles per second up to about 20,000 hertz. That's the human hearing bandwidth. And most sounds are subsonic below that or ultrasonic above that. So, human beings tend to believe in what they can see and what they can hear. But we don't see X-rays or ultraviolet light, and there's a lot of things we don't see, and there's a lot of things we don't hear. So we have to be somewhat dependent on science and physics and the research that's out there. And so I try to explain some basic stuff for people. You don't have to be a physicist to understand things like brainwave entrainment and some of the things that I'm talking about, but I'd like to finish up with the three.
Oh, please,
sounds.
yes, please do.
So relaxing sound, the purpose of it is to calm and soothe the body. It's not healing. Like I said, if you feel that you had a healing, anyone from relaxing sound, it's not really the sound. It's they were in the right space and time to pop, so to speak, to have the body do its job and heal you. The second type of sound is what I call release sounds. Now, release sounds are very different from relaxing sounds, where relaxing sounds are generally softer volume and kind of in a musical context, rubato, meaning it flows, there's no rhythm or very little rhythm if there is rhythm. And where release sounds are more energetic. They're usually a bit louder. Now, there's also sounds that are that we create ourselves, and then there's sounds that we listen to. So I'm talking about both, but you have to put it in the right context. When you go into a gym, for instance, to work out, if you're a member of a gym, you don't hear Yanni or Kitaro playing New Age music in there. You hear thump, thump, thump.
Exactly.
Another one bites of us. You hear either rock music or dance music, because rock music and dance music moves the most energy in terms of being release sounds. That falls under the category of release sounds. But what I work with primarily with people is the ultimate healing instrument, which is the human voice. And it's sitting right under our noses. And this is what I spend most of my time doing, is trying to educate people to get over their fears around the voice, their blockages and fears around the fifth chakra that rules the human voice, and get over that, to give them the confidence and the awareness that they have this tremendous healing tool, instrument, that just has to be developed. Just takes, like anything, it just takes a little practice. And we make release sounds every day. We don't call it toning, but vocal toning, as I define it, is just moving energy with the human voice, using primarily vowel sounds, but not limited to vowel sounds. And that's all toning is. So in that context, we're toning when we moan and groan. We're toning when we yawn or sigh. The biggies are like laughing and crying. We all know how great it feels after we have a good cry or after we have a good laugh. We just feel so much better because we've released a lot of energy that we've released from our body that could block some energy. And even though a cry might be sad, it could be a happy cry, it could be a sad cry. Right. But even if it's a sad, grief-filled cry, we still feel better afterwards. People will acknowledge, even though they're having a sad experience, that you feel better afterwards, and because you're releasing stuff. But again, release sounds aren't necessarily healing. It's your body that's doing the healing. But the release sounds set up the environment for healing. I mean, even the subtle things, like when we raise our voice, we get excited emotionally and our voice goes up in volume. We've all had that experience. Sure. Because we're releasing. You're constantly releasing. It's kind of like food. We take in food and we release food. We eliminate food. And it's the same thing with sound. We take in sound and we make sound. And so there's a lot of correlates that can be drawn with food and with sound and vocal toning.
All right, stand by, please, Wayne. We have to take another commercial break for the news at the bottom of the hour. Exonation, Wayne Perry is my guest this hour. We're talking about sound medicine. www.wayneperry.com is his website, and we'll both be back after the news as we continue here in the X Zone with yours truly, Rob McConnell, from our broadcast center and studios in Niagara, Ontario, Canada. I'll be back after this break with Wayne Perry. Don't go away. Wayne Perry is our guest, Exonation. We're talking about sound medicine this hour here in the X Zone. And if you'd like to find out more about Wayne and the great work he does, visit his website at wayneperry.com. Wayne, during the break and listening to you in the last segment, it makes a lot of sense because being a dad and a grandfather, we know the effect that our voice can have when a child is upset, how soothing we can we can be, or if the child is sick and so on. And I think that when we put it into that context, it makes perfect sense.
Yeah, that in fact, in my weekend intensive workshop I've got coming up on February 22nd and 23rd in Los Angeles, the very first exercise is Saturday morning of the workshop has to do with releasing toxic energy that we get when we're like little sponges. The first 5 or 6 years of our life, we're the most open and most vulnerable, and that's when a lot of negativity sets in, and we take on a lot of the energy of our parents. And even if we had a good home life and our parents loved us, like many families do, you still, I mean, we're not perfect. I'm a dad and I'm a grandfather too. I have a grandson, and my daughter is married and lives in the Midwest. And we did the best we can. I have a good relationship with my daughter, but even when you're loving, we never got training in school on how to be the ideal parent. I mean, we didn't even get trained to be the ideal spouse, let alone parent. So, there's a lot of that anger, shame, blame, lack of self-esteem, a lot of stuff that we carry that we project into our kids. And people carry that energy practically their whole life. And it becomes a stumbling block to their healing. You have to kind of work through that. So I've discovered, some methodology and exercises. The first exercise we do in my workshop is a very simple exercise that helps people to get back to childhood and even their birth, and release that energy that most of it comes from the mother, which is no judgment of mothers. I love mothers. I mean, they bring life into the world and everything, but we're not perfect human beings. We make mistakes.
That's right.
And so we take on this stuff. Most of it comes from the mother, then next the father, and then some comes from siblings and teachers. But by the time we're 5 or 6 years old, we start to armor ourselves and protect ourselves from things in the environment, people and sounds and energies and judgments and all this kind of stuff. We have a self-protective system that I think Spirit or God kind of gives us. But the first 5 or 6 years, depending on the individual, it's could vary a little bit, but those are the vulnerable years. Like psychologists say, are like little sponges, and psychologists know, like when parents split up or get divorced, children feel that they're the cause of it. They blame themselves.
That's right.
And this is commonly known in psychology, but it goes a lot deeper than that. And so to be able to heal some of those energies and to help people to release some of the stuff from their childhood is one of many, many parts of the methodology I use to try to support people and to heal them and help them to raise their frequency to better health and wellness.
So what are the differences, or are there differences between the tonal therapy, the music therapy? I understand the basics, but what is the physiology behind it? What is the psychology behind it? What makes it work?
Are you talking about sound therapy?
Sound therapy, tonal therapy, yeah.
Well,
like for example, how does a sound cure somebody from a sickness?
Well, it replaces energy. Well, I was trying to give you the kind of the foundation of it is the 3 hours, and I got through 2 of the 3 hours, and maybe if I finish with the third hour, it could give you a more comprehensive understanding and perhaps answer your question. If not, I'll definitely answer the question if this doesn't.
Sounds fair.
So I said the first types of sounds, first R is relaxing sounds.
Right.
It's for calming and soothing the body. The second are release sounds. The purpose of release sounds is to cleanse the body. Just like we take a shower or a bath to cleanse the physical body, these release sounds that we make are kind of God's way of helping us clear this energy. When we raise our voice, when we moan, we groan, we laugh, we cry, we sigh, we do all these things. It helps move the energy and keep the body moving. People aren't aware, if you didn't make any sound, if you didn't have the capacity that we all have, the kind of God-given gift that we take for granted to make sound, if we didn't make those sounds, our bodies would literally atrophy. we wouldn't even be able to move. It's all these natural sounds that we're given and that we make, that's part of our heritage and our design as a human being, to make these sounds that keep us fluid and in motion and moving through life. And so these release sounds, again, are very important to cleanse the body and release blockages so that healing can occur. So that takes us to the third R, the third type of sound, which is the real healing sound. The third R is what I call regenerative sound. Regenerative sound has the power to actually heal. And I talk in the chapter in my book, Sound Medicine, there's about 5 characteristics of regenerative sound. In the interest of time, because we have a limited time space here, I just want to focus on the 2 most important ones. The first most important aspect of regenerative sound is harmonics, vocal harmonics or overtones. And so what that is, it's a vocal production of sound. And why I say the ultimate healing instrument is the human voice. That's the name of my first CD. I have 12 albums, 12 recordings that I've done over the last 25 years. And the very first one was called The Ultimate Healing Instrument, the human voice, because I believe it is the ultimate healing instrument. There is no instrument that has the power to heal like the human voice. Why? I mean, the short answer is because it's connected to spirit. There's no middleman. You don't need a guitar or a piano or a drum or a horn or a gong or a bowl or a fork or any of these devices. You can, it's just connected within us. But the trick is how to use it. Most people don't know how to use the voice, at least not in a therapeutic sense. Yeah, we know how to talk and we learn how to sing, some of us, and maybe chant, and that's about the extent of it. But the other, purpose of the voice is to move energy and to heal. And it's not that complicated a process. But the harmonics and overtones that I'm talking about, that's what people, have a little trouble understanding. It's creating a fundamental tone with the voice. And now people that are musicians understand the overtone series because it's part of music training. You have a note that you play, let's say on a piano, and then you play that note and other notes vibrate in sympathy with that note. That's the principle of resonance, or other strings or chords on the piano or a guitar vibrate in sympathy with that original note. And that's why it's like you could look at those strings like people as well, that if you're vibrating in sympathy, that's why we go to concerts together. We have similar things that we like, and there's an energy that flows together when we're listening to a powerful concert or a speaker or watching a movie. It's these things that we put our energy together into. And so the harmonics of sound is very similar. You have a fundamental note that you create, and then you can create an overtone, a second tone on top of it. And then you can even learn to do a third tone on top of that. So it's multiple sounds. And much like an opera singer, like Caruso did, could shatter a wine glass with his sustained high-frequency pitch, what's going on there is it matches the frequency of the wine glass. And if it's sustained long enough, the wine glass begins to vibrate and shake and vibrate, and it'll eventually shatter. And I've seen this done on public television, on TV. In fact, I saw last year or the year before, I saw them shatter a 3-foot thick, 10 feet tall brick wall with sound. That was an amazing thing. Of course, they didn't do it with the human voice. They had a long, like 15-foot horn, and they hooked it up. I don't know how they did it, what was going on there, but I watched it, and I watched the wall begin to vibrate and eventually shatter from the sound. And then after that, they showed some other things. I mean, that was mind-blowing enough, but then they showed how some police are even using sound. Yeah. And they showed, like, a burglar running from a house, and they had this sound zap. They zapped this guy and knocked him about 3 or 4 feet through the air.
In fact, the U.S. military has weapons like that.
Yeah. I mean, so there's all kinds of uses for sound. I tend to, avoid. I'm not looking at the destructive aspects of it, which may be helpful or necessary in police work. I don't. That's not my area of expertise. But I just mention it because of the shattering of the wall with sound. And, it also validates the shattering of the crystal wine glass that could be done with the voice. There was the Memorex commercial with Ella Fitzgerald shattering the glass. Now, I don't know if that was legitimate or if that was staged. I know Caruso could do it, and I've seen it done on public television. But the point, I've even seen levitation done on television, levitating objects, marbles and things. And they say, when I was in Egypt in 1997.
All right, we're going to have to hold you off here because I do have to take my final break. Exo Nation, Wayne Perry's our guest, www.wayneperry.com. And when we come back, we'll be wrapping up this hour here in the X Zone from our broadcast center and studios in Niagara, Ontario, Canada. I'm Rob McConnell. We'll be right back after this break. Wayne Perry is our special guest. We're talking about sound medicine this hour here in the X Zone. His website is wayneperry.com. So you and I were talking about the power of sound, and the U.S. military has used sound weaponry in the past. They use sound for psychological warfare, and law enforcement uses it as a non-lethal weapon.
Right.
So, with everything that is going on, how can we best utilize the sound? And you were saying how the human voice is the best tool of all. So how can we better understand that our own voice is the best tool for sound medicine?
Well, the first thing I recommend is for people to get a diagnostic brain voice sound analysis. It takes about 90 minutes to do it properly, and I chart out a person's personal signature frequency by hand while they're on the microphone, and I'm charting out the octaves and frequencies in their voice, and a pattern begins to emerge. Mm-hmm. And in about 30 minutes or so, I can tell where they're strong and where they're weak physically, emotionally, vibrationally, because it's reflecting what's in their brain. And so it's very accurate. And people always tell me, how could you know that about me? Or that's right, I'm weak in digestion, or I'm weak in some emotional aspect. So, I mean, it's very accurate, and that's half the battle right there, knowing your personal frequency, where you're strong, where you're weak. And then there's just some simple things to do. Not only is it the most effective alternative holistic healing modality, it's probably the least expensive. The diagnostic sound analysis is 90 minutes is like less than $200. It's like $185 to do a sound analysis. And you got it halfway done with that. Then the only other thing you need is some recordings, downloads, or CDs so that you can entrain the brain. And we don't have time, I guess, for me to explain that process, or brainwave entrainment, which is vitally important. And I didn't even finish explaining the third R of regenerative sound, which I can even demonstrate usually when I do radio or TV interviews. When I demonstrate regenerative sound, the phones ring off the hook, because people don't realize it's just my voice. They think I've got some instrument. And if it's TV, they can see there's no instrument.
Well, why don't you give us a demonstration?
Pardon me?
Why don't you give us a demonstration?
Okay, well, I'll do that. The one last thing I want to say before I demonstrate this is I said I'd talk about the two most important aspects of regenerative sound. The first is the harmonics and overtones, which is creating a fundamental frequency and then additional frequencies on top of that. So you're listening to 2 and 3 sounds simultaneously, which move a whole lot of energy. And just like the opera singer, like Caruso, could shatter the crystal wine glass with a sustained high-frequency tone, the overtones and harmonics in the human voice can shatter subtle energy crystallizations in the body that cause pain, tension, stress, and lead to disease. So the second aspect of regenerative sound is giving the patient sound that they're deficient, that the sound analysis reveals is deficient. So that's how the healing takes place. You have to personalize it. These people doing sound baths are exploiting people. I'm trying to counteract the danger of sound baths because these people, might be nice people and well-intentioned that doing sound baths all through California, but they're not sound therapists. They don't know what they're giving people, and they could be giving a person something that they have an excess of in their brainwave pattern and cause damage to them. And every week or two, I've got to align somebody that went to a sound bath and got their frequency patterns screwed up. So the second important factor of regenerative sound is applying sound that's specifically needed by that individual that the sound analysis reveals. So if you're weak in C sharp or B flat, we have to give it's not music therapy, but we have to call those frequencies something. And we have a perfect mathematical formula in music. So that's the way to identify the frequency. That's all. And so by listening for a few minutes every day, that puts the sound back into the brainwave pattern so the body can heal itself. We remember songs that we heard when we were children. You never forget those songs. Once the brain is entrained with entrainment, which the key is repetition, then that repetition plants it, and we never forget that sound or that song. And so that's what we do with sound therapy, because music isn't healing. It's digitally produced. It's like a sonic stew. You can't isolate the frequencies. There's so much going on in any particular song. There's 4 notes in a chord, maybe 4 or 5 chords in a song. So there's just too much going on. So we use those principles of repetition to isolate what frequencies somebody needs and then give them that. That's half of the sound therapy. They listen for a few minutes every day. They don't even have to stop what you're doing. You can listen to those tones while you're on the computer, driving your car, or eating breakfast. It doesn't even interrupt your day with, sonic homework. That's the first half of sound therapy. The second half is going to take a little time, and that's the toning, where I train people how to use their voice to release sound, to release the blockages and excess sound that's in the brainwave pattern. And that's it. That's sound therapy in a nutshell. Diagnostic analysis, listening is the food that goes into the body, listening to those harmonics. I have harmonic recordings and downloads that they can listen to that will put the healing sound into the brainwave pattern so the brain and the body can do its job. Its natural job of healing itself.
All right, we've got
release it with the voice.
We have about 4 minutes left. I'd like you to give us a demonstration.
Okay, so I'll start demonstrating by showing the fundamental tone, which there's a fundamental tone in my speaking voice, a singing voice. If I sang a note, I could go, ah. Now that's a singing note, but this is not singing or music therapy. It's sound therapy. So what we do is I can send that same sound I just did, whatever note that was, through my mouth. I could send it through my nose, and it sounds more muffled because it's coming through the nostrils, and it sounds like humming, because my mouth's closed, the sound's coming through the nose. Same note, first through the mouth, then through the nose, ah, or Okay, that's the same note. Now, what I'm going to do to demonstrate it is I'm going to do the fundamental note through the nose. That's the single note or fundamental note. Then I'm going to bring another note through my mouth, and that's the overtone. That's the secret of overtoning. And then I'm going to go back to one tone so you can hear the difference. Years ago, I used to demonstrate this, and I thought people were understanding it, but they didn't have a reference point. They didn't know what I was doing. They could feel something, but they didn't know what was going on. So now I kind of explain it a little bit. I'm going to start with one tone through the nose, and then I'm going to go to two tones. And then notice how you feel, especially when that second tone kicks in. Usually you can feel a little surge of energy when that second note comes in. Then I'll go back to one tone so you can hear the difference of just one tone, and then two tones. I'll go back and forth between one and two tones. That sounds like this. You hear the difference between the one and the two frequencies?
Mm-hmm.
And could you feel any uplift of energy when that second note kicked in?
Nope.
You didn't?
Nope.
Well, most people do, but some people don't. You have to kind of be in touch with your body, in touch with sound, which just takes a little listening practice, and you start to feel it. But anyway, that's the difference between 1 and 2 tones, which is overtoning. But now I'd like to demonstrate 3 and 4 tones simultaneously. Sure. This is what rings the phones off the hook, but people think that I'm using some kind of an instrument other than my voice. And this is what really moves energy in the body. And if you don't feel this, well, then you got some work to do with your focusing and your vibing with sound. But it is what it is. Everybody's exactly where they're supposed to be in this now moment. So I'm going to start with 1 tone. I'm going to go into 2 and then 3 and 4 tones, and I'm going to go up and down through the scales and see what you hear, see what you feel. And I usually guide people through this in a certain way that we don't really have time to. Instead of just listening with their ears, I tell them, listen with your feelings, with your skin, with your gut, with your whole body. It's only going to take about 60 seconds or so. Mm-hmm. But if you just stay focused and receive the sound, just listen with the ears, you're kind of locked in your left brain.
We have 60 seconds.
Yes. So it sounds like this.
All right, we've got to say so long for tonight. I don't know, Exo Nation. Personally, I found that very annoying. I think we're going to have to take some pills. I'll be back on the other side of this commercial break as we continue here in the X Zone with yours truly, Rob McConnell, from our broadcast center and studios in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. No, we're in Niagara, Ontario, Canada. You'd think after, nearly 5 months, Craig, of being here in Niagara, I'd get it straight. But according to the people that we have on the show, it's normal. After doing the show in Hamilton for nearly 30 years, well, there you go. This is the X Zone. I am Rob McConnell from our studios and broadcast center in Niagara, Ontario, Canada. Don't go away.